Thanks, Wendy. Morning, everyone. My name's Bob Cousins. I'm the course leader for design here at NIDA. Welcome to the design course talk this morning. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we sit on here at NIDA. We acknowledge the Bidjigal, Gadigal, Darawal and Darug people and pay respects to their elders past and present. As I said, I'm Bob Cousins. I'm the course leader for design. I'm joined this morning by Alice Babidge. Alice is a graduate from the course from 2002? Yeah, great. And Alice works as both a set and costume production designer across theatre, film, opera, dance. We'll have an opportunity to talk to Alice about her experience, what she's learned at NIDA through the design course and how she's taken that into industry. And I'll talk a little bit about the course itself this morning, and then at the end there'll be an opportunity for you to ask us some questions, and we can direct you to more information. I might just start by this morning we're sitting on the set for Photograph 51, which is one of 4 productions that are on here today at NIDA. These 4 productions are the culmination of 6 months of work for all the students across the school largely. It's the incredible thing about NIDA. It operates kind of as its own production company, as its own theatre company. And there's an incredible kind of collaborative energy that goes in it's the thing that's always kind of amazed me in the 4 or 5 years I've been working here, is this extraordinary collaborative energy across the entire student body that goes into making these productions. And hopefully some of you will get to see some of these productions today. But it's incredible how these productions are made from the ground up with students. The only person we have as an external on these productions, one of the key personnel, is the directors. Everything else, the designs, the technical aspects of it, the acting, the making, all of that are made by students. And it's an extraordinary thing that kind of NIDA offers to students of whatever course you're coming into, this opportunity to work, to learn and work by doing the work. And I think it's the unique thing about the course, and for a designer to be able to get the opportunity to have their designs realised, so it's not just a hypothetical project, and to be able to kind of get these up on stage and have an audience in front of them, for actors, for the makers, it's an incredible privilege actually, and a great strength of this course. So. The Design for Performance course, we're kind of focused on, sorry, I'll just move this on. I might actually, just before I start, I might also acknowledge we've got some, we're going live this morning, and I want to acknowledge the people watching online as well. So the course overview, we largely focus on set design and costume design, across all live theatre, opera, dance, but also in the screen industries, film and television. Anything that you kind of see on a screen or on a stage visually, generally there's been a designer's hand in that. We shape the worlds of it, we shape the kind of costumes of those characters, and kind of create the production language of all those productions, whether they be a theatre piece, an opera or a film. It's also very collaborative. We work a lot with the makers, so I think that's the thing about all our work here, is at the heart of it is it's collaborative, we could take that then into industry in all sorts of different ways. So there's the obvious things like the set and costume design, but there's a whole lot of other myriad ways that we use those skills that we learn here as well. And we'll talk a little bit about those skills shortly. The NIDA experience, when you come here, we work in really small cohorts here. We do that because that allows you the opportunity to actually to do those things like design productions that we have up here like today. it's a great thing. You build really strong relationships across all the different courses here, not just with the students, but with all the teaching staff, all the mentors that come into the course. And all those mentors that come into the course, all the teaching staff, they're all industry professionals. They're all people that are kind of drawn from industry. So you're really kind of both tapping into that knowledge, but tapping into that network, and it offers you a direct pathway into industry afterwards. It's one of the great kind of strengths of the course as well, I think. What we really want to do here is we want to develop kind of critical thinking. We want to kind of develop students' curiosity. We want to develop their sense of daring, and we want to develop their practical skill set and their knowledge of what's required to industry to be working on a film, to be working on a theatre production, and that's kind of that's at the heart of what we do here. So it's the BFA Design for Performance course. It's a 3-year course. It's a full-time course, and I think anyone considering applying for the course needs to understand that it's an absolute commitment to come here. It's a full-time job, really, to come and study here at NIDA. You're here from 9 till 6, from Monday to Thursday, and on Fridays you're here from 9 to 1. We give you the afternoon off to take a breath, and then you'll be back again on the Monday to do it all over again, and we do that for 34 weeks a year over 4 terms. So it's an intense course. There's a lot of work, and in the times of productions, you'll be expected to be working kind of into the evenings as well to make those productions, to realise those productions. So it's kind of a lifestyle choice to come here at NIDA. This will become your cohorts, your fellow students. They'll become your family for that next 3 years, and actually you'll graduate from here, and they'll be your creative partners as you move out of here. And again, that's a kind of strength of the course, I think. So we start the students in the first year, and that's really about kind of building their skills, building their understanding of what's required to be a set and costume designer, to be a visual designer for live entertainment and for film. These are always done through each term. We have a key studio project, and that might be a set design or a costume design. It might be both. It might be film-based or it might be theatre-based. In the first couple of years, they're mostly hypothetical projects as we build those skills. You'll be working, as I said, with industry professionals. It's quite a rigorous course. Every week you're here practically, you're kind of you're asked to kind of build an argument for your work, build rationales for your work, to defend those choices, and in doing so, we're kind of building really strong critical thinkers. Students who leave here are kind of match fit and ready to go out into industry, either in roles such as designing, but also in those support roles. And there's a whole myriad of those which I'll talk about at the end. Some of the skills that we develop in that first year are things like your drawing skills, your making skills. We work a lot through drawing and model making. These are tools for us for thinking, and that's really what this course is. So much of this course is about. It's about critical thinking, I think. It's about problem solving. It's about finding solutions to challenges, and mostly finding visual solutions for those. We really work in the kind of visual world, and a lot of that's about kind of understanding what's at the core of a play or a film or the demands of that, and that's a lot of research and analysis, kind of understanding what it is that brings meaning to a production on stage. So we look a lot about the kind of history of theatre, how it works, the machine of the theatre, like how do we understand this kind of magical thing that happens between an audience and performers on stage in a world that's kind of been established by the designers. So we kind of learn about the way that the practical aspects of the theatre. So you've got a really good grounding in that, and again, these are really great skills that when you leave NIDA, these might be your first footsteps into the industry. You might be working as an assistant at to a designer at a theatre company, but you could also be working in an art department or a costume department on a film set or on a TV production. Something that we've introduced into the course in the last couple of years is an engagement with First Nations practice and thinking. We're doing that both directly through the course, through a subject we call Story and Place, which is about thinking about designing on country and the reciprocity that's kind of needed in doing that. We're into our second year of this new subject, and it's had a really profound impact on our students, and it's also supported by our Commons courses here, which are courses that all the students across each year do together. Mostly we work in our individual disciplines, so the design students work in their small cohorts, but there's other opportunities like the production seasons and like these common courses where all the students come together. So in the second year, you'll take those skills that you've been developing in the first year and start to really consolidate them. There's opportunities to start to work on actual realised productions there, to put that design thinking, that critical thinking into effect, and to see those realised. And again, the kind of key to that for us is the kind of building that ability to work with other people to realise what your vision for a production is. And that's a real key to everything we do here, I think, that the real job of the designer is, I think, to both inspire and to communicate and inspire all their collaborators to, I think, realise these ideas that we bring to sort of shaping the worlds of our productions and sharing that with an audience. So in second year, this starts to become a bit more focused, both on theatre, and we have a separate film stream where we start to develop those skills and an understanding of how that works, and we continue that work through the dramaturgy and analysis of like the research, building those skills as well. And then in third year, there's a real chance to kind of put these into practice. We start to treat you more or less as a practicing designer. You do 2 major productions in third year. One of those you'll be doing a set design role on that. One of them that you'll be doing a costume design role. We teach across both set and costume design. We think that's a really important part of this course. It's I think they both inform each other. We have a lot of students coming in at the beginning, and they might be interested in doing costume design, or they might be interested, specifically in doing set design. We ask them to engage with both those disciplines. I think it kind of creates incredibly well-rounded designers at the end. It gives them a lot better understanding of the whole process. Some of them might go on just to be a costume designer. Some of them might go on to be just a set designer, but a lot of them kind of cover both. And Alice here, Alice works across all those areas, across both live productions, but also on film. And I think it's a real strength of the students that come out of NIDA, having done both of those streams. And I think their kind of understanding of the storytelling potential of design, of the way that these things kind of cohesively come together to kind of create a really incredible memorable experience for the audience is established by having to engage with both of these disciplines throughout the course. In addition to those 2 major productions, you'll also be working on a number of film productions. Currently, our students have been working on a project which has been operating the course for almost about 10 years now. It's a collaboration with Triple J and with Rage, where students make music videos, which are then screened on ABC's Rage for emerging artists, who are chosen through the Triple J Unearthed competition. And so the design students work with the MFA directors here in teams, and they create these and shoot these videos. They make short films and again build their kind of understanding of of the demands of being a costume designer and production designer in film and television. And then we complement that by providing another subject, professional practice, which just builds their understanding of themselves as a practitioner stepping out into the industry. So that's really about preparing them for life after NIDA. It's building their pathways into it. It's making connections, with industry. And one of the main ways we do that is we offer, or one of the requirements of the course is that students do industry placements as well. So they do 2 lots of industry placements. In second year, we have a specific industry placement where all the students are found positions on local film and TV productions. They might be in an art department, they might be in a costume department, but they get to spend 2 or 3 weeks working on a production to get a sense of how this works. And then in third year, they have a requirement for an industry placement of sort of between 2 and 4 weeks, where they can go out and they can find a practicing designer, someone like Alice, or it could be a company, and they spend some more time there, kind of understanding the practice and I think developing their connections to industry. And it's one of the great things about these industry placements, that it's a way of starting to build contacts, build connections, and establish those pathways into industry. And because so much of the staff and so many of the people here really come from industry, are still working in industry, there's a really strong connection there anyway, and this is really enhanced through these industry placements. So I might just talk quickly about the application process, and then I'm going to ask Alice some questions. So the application process, we try and make the application process for the design course as open as possible. We don't ask that you've had experience in theatre or film. We used to be asking you to make a set design and a costume design for it, but we realised that that's perhaps disadvantages people who haven't had that access and that experience. So really all we want to understand from you as an applicant now is that you're able to think visually, that you kind of have a kind of strong sense of critical thinking, and that you're able to think visually. So we have just one requirement really for the application process, and that's that you submit a visual portfolio. And that visual portfolio can contain any of your work that shows us how you think about the world visually. And so that could be things like drawing, it could be sculpture, it could be costumes that you've made, it could be set models that you've built, but it could be painting, it could be photography, it could be if you're doing a tech project through your HSC, or it could be your engagement with drama, and able to talk about the kind of the visual dramaturgy of a play, the way that it kind of works visually. It's all those sorts of things, and we don't put too much. The process of putting that portfolio together is a kind of is a visual challenge, is a design challenge in itself. So we're really interested in the way that you put that together. So I want you to think, in that application, when you're putting that portfolio together, to think about what you're communicating. We really want you to show us how you think about the world visually, and so think about how you are communicating that through that portfolio. And we also ask just for an artist statement to tell us really about why you're interested in this course, and we do ask you to talk about a production or a piece of theatre, or maybe a film that you've seen and experienced, and we want you to talk about the kind of the design aspects of that made some kind of connection with you. There's 2 rounds to the application process, so the applications will shortlist from the first round of applications based on your portfolio and your application. and then we'll have an interview process, which largely takes place online, and we do that because we get applications from right across Australia, and we want to make that an equitable process for everybody. And in that interview, we'll talk to you about your visual portfolio and your interest in the course, why you want to come and study here. It's a fairly casual process. We really want to get to know you a bit in that process, and we'll also get you to talk to, you know, your artist statement as well. So, but I might now just throw to Alice and ask Alice a couple of questions. As I said, Alice graduated from here sort of a bit over 20 years ago, I think, and has had an incredible career both here in Australia, but overseas. Alice's work has been mostly centred in film in recent times. Most recently working with Justin Kurzel on the series The Narrow Road to the True North. Prior to that, she'd worked with Justin on The True History of the Kelly Gang, Nitram. Alice has worked with Ari Aster in the States, has worked with opera companies in France, in England, has worked with most of the major theatre companies here in Australia, has used the skills that she developed here at NIDA as fashion design. There's a whole range of things. Maybe, Alice, you could tell us a little bit about your experience here and how you've applied that in industry.
Hi. I think the most important thing that I learned when I came to NIDA was about my process. I think you can have, no one can teach you what the idea is. No one can teach you about a creative impulse. But what I learned here was how to find that idea or take the impulse and turn it into something tangible and something for an audience or something for an actor or something for a director. And it gave me a real clear, and it still evolves and I'm still changing it, but it gave me the kind of tools to create a process to get that idea out and to find a way to communicate what I thought, why I thought a red shoe with a small buckle and a 2-inch heel was the right idea. Otherwise, it just sits, that sort of idea just sits inside you. So I think that was my main takeaway after the 3 grueling years at NIDA. It is, I mean, Bob says it's a commitment, and those hours that he told you about, they are real and they are only the kind of very beginning. Because I think the other thing about this course is you only get out of it what you put into it. And I put 3 years, I would say 7 days a week, and I would say 48 weeks a year I put into this. And I wouldn't change a second of that now, because I have the most wonderful career working with the most incredible collaborators, some of whom I met here and I still work with today. But that is primarily, I think, because of the time and dedication that I put into my education in this wonderful, crazy building.
I think that's right. I think this is a place of opportunity, actually, because I think we have these small cohorts. It's a really intimate space, and because of that, you have access to not just resources and incredibly well-equipped theatres and studios and things like that, but the big access that you have is to industry knowledge. And not just all the teaching staff that come in, but you work in such intimate cohorts that and everyone brings something different to that cohort, I think, and that's a kind of that's you can supercharge your learning, through that process. I think that it's that collaborative kind of nature of those small studio spaces working together. You've got the person in the room that's the tech expert. You've got the person in the room that understands how construction comes together, and the incredible kind of collaborative energy that then kind of develops amongst those tight groups of, in our course, 8 students, is incredible actually, and really increases your kind of learning exponentially.
Yeah, and I think something that can be really singular and can feel really isolating and lonely sometimes, being, especially if as a designer you are doing set and costume, you're sort of this one person, you really exploit that here, because the conversation and the potential for conversation about what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you could be doing is absolutely limitless within this building, with the people in your course, people above you, below you, different courses, as Bob said, industry leaders. It's an opportunity that hopefully you continue to have for the rest of your career, but it just gives you the kind of introduction to what, we still have the same conversations now that I had with the people in my classroom when I was in NIDA in first year.
Yeah, it's really about ideas. What we work with is ideas, the first and foremost, I think, and then how do we realise those ideas, as crazy as those ideas might be, and sometimes you kind of get an idea on paper that you think, like, that's impossible. How do you get 1,000 fish fly into a boat and the boat sinks on a stage? It's those kind of challenges, that you have to try and solve, and you don't do that alone. You do it kind of collectively in the end, and it's incredibly rewarding when that sort of things comes together. So yeah, and maybe then you can talk a little bit about the different ways that you've used those skills. I think, Alice.
I think people often ask me what is the difference between designing for theatre or opera or film and television, and to me there kind of is no difference. All I'm doing is having an idea and working out the best way to kind of communicate that idea visually. But I think you do, I did learn about the different kind of timelines associated to all of these practices. You work very differently in the creative process, making a piece of theatre to making a piece of opera and to making a film. And it's all about these kind of incubation periods that you have for your ideas. In theatre and opera, it's called rehearsal. In film, it's called pre-production. And I think the time you get to spend here, it's basically 3 years of pre-production, 3 years of rehearsal is something that I've taken into my practice. And it is as much as I love it when we get on stage, I love it when a show opens, I love it when we start shooting a film, the very best period for me is always that period where the ideas are being incubated and grown and evolved and worked on, and the collaboration is kind of at its most exciting. And to have, to be able to go back and do that period again, where you have that 3 years of really concentrated rehearsal of your career, essentially, would be quite an exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I think Alice is talking a bit about research there too, and that's really, if you don't love research, this course is not for you. It's kind of
but also if you don't, it sort of teaches you how to research, because you also don't necessarily, how do you take an idea and sort of evolve it? And I think the thing about this place is that it helps you work out how to follow your instincts down a path, how to pull a thread on an idea, and I used to think it was just about you had to think of it and then you had to draw it and then that had to be it. But it's so much more than that. It's hours sitting looking at images or books and sort of letting your kind of mind wander through ideas to find a kind of path. And this place gives you the opportunity to kind of try all of that.
And for me, that's the most rewarding part of the job in a lot of ways, actually, I think. That like allowing yourself that time to follow those instincts that Alice is talking about. So we might open it up to questions now. Are there any questions from anyone up there about the course, about the application process? Any questions for Alice about her career? We've got a microphone here with Wendy, so if you've got any questions, just please put your hand up and Wendy will run the mic to you. Oh yeah, up the back here.
Okay.
just go up here first. Just, because we're live streaming, please wait till you get the mic.
I was just wondering if, Alice? Yeah, I was just wondering if you remember your portfolio and what you did for that.
When I applied, you had to make a model box, and I didn't know how to make a model box. I'd never designed a piece of theatre before in my life. And I made, you were also given a list of plays or musicals. I chose a musical, which is bizarre. I've never designed a musical. I chose Cabaret, and I designed a set that I made out of a cornflake box because I didn't, which is why I think the kind of evolution of the application process now is really wonderful, because I think you don't know about scale. You don't need to know. You don't need to know how to build a model before you start here. The idea is you come here and you learn it from brilliant people like Bob. But I do remember my portfolio had my major work from year 12, like aspects of that in it, and kind of drawings or things I'd done over the years. I wasn't the strongest at drawing. I learned a lot about drawing when I came here. I remember Peter Cook, who ran the course when I was here, said you can learn to draw, and I fundamentally agree with that statement. You can learn to draw. You don't need to know how to do any of that. And as Bob has said, it's about is there an idea? Is there a creative expression kind of inside you? People here can help you work out how to get it out, but is it there to begin with?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, to pick up on Alice's point around drawing is that we don't draw to make kind of, artifacts here. We draw to think. It's a tool for us for thinking, and so yeah, we want to see that thinking in your portfolio. Another question, Pim?
Thank you. So my question was for Alice as well. I was wondering how you find, or if you have a balance of kind of research and sketching at the beginning, and then also model making and doing more physical kind of prop-based stuff or scenic painting within your work. Is that kind of there, or is it more just like the research, the sketchy?
Now,
development?
I would consider myself quite a hands-on designer. I do a lot of research, a lot of visual. I deep dive visually in a really huge way. I put together huge reference packages of images when I'm starting something because it helps me work out what my idea is, and I distill it down and down. And I do draw. I do costume drawings, which I also always say it's not necessarily that is exactly what it should be. It's another version of a reference or a form of communication, or it's about a sensibility of how a costume should feel or a palette. And I find the journey of model making really useful. I find this sort of idea of playing inside a theatre and the evolution of an idea that comes from that really important. I might think I know what it is when I begin, and Bob will agree, but the model you finish with isn't necessarily where you thought you were sort of going to start. But I find that getting physically being involved in the making of the things really important part of my process that as much as I can, I still try and do now.
And I think that's the key to the learning here. It's embodied in that way. Like you're actually doing it. You're thinking and doing at the same time. You're thinking through doing. So yeah, and learning through doing.
Hi, this is for Bob. Do you guys have any, or both of you, thanks. Do you have any feedback for reapplication? Like, to what extent should you call your own work or reflect on your journey, or should it mostly be your new stuff? Thank you.
Is that if you're applying for a second time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can show us what you've been doing in the interim from your last time, and I might just talk to that a little bit. We do only have 8 places in the course. We have to keep those numbers low so that you've got the opportunities to do what we do. And obviously, there's a reasonably high demand for those for those 8 places in the course. And it's been the pathway for a large number of students into the design course to apply a second time and sometimes a third time. The fact that you apply again shows us how keen you are, and so And if you don't get a place, you know, like if you don't get offered a place in that first time you applied, it's not that we don't think you're not capable of doing the course. We just have this limited number of places, and so I always encourage people not to be disheartened by that. You know, this is the path into the course for a lot of people, like a second or third time. So in terms of your question, I think, yeah, if you can show us what you've been doing in the interim, and that, you know, so it would be a mix of, you know, what you originally, you know, it could be a mix of what you originally submitted, but if we can see what you've been doing in the meantime, the way you've kind of grown and, you know, you've developed your way you're thinking about, you know, the world visually, then I think that would be ideal.
Thank you.
Thanks. On that kind of point, are you finding that most of the people doing the course are sort of a little bit older than straight out of high school?
It's a mix. It's absolutely a mix. And that varies each year. It's a lot of people have had maybe a year out, but we also have members of the, you know, all our cohorts at the moment who would have come straight from high school as well. And then we have, you know, other students who might have already done another degree, you know, and we also have students from right across Australia as well, you know, so, and that varies from year to year as well. You know, our second year group here at the moment, every student's from a different state or a different place, whereas our first year, you know, cohort at the moment has a lot more Sydney-based students. So it varies from year to year, and the kind of age range varies from year to year. But you know, we do accept, you know, students straight from school sometimes, and but we, you know, as I said, we've also got, you know, students who have, say, done a, you know, an architecture degree as well. So yeah.
Hi, I just have a question about the costume design side of the course.
Yep.
When you talk about costume design, is it actually like sewing the garments and pattern making, or is it more just like designing or like costume buying and stuff?
It's more the designing side of it in this course, and but we work closely with the costume course, the students in the costume course here who are costume makers and do the costume supervising roles on a production like this. So it does. You know, you will learn, you know, the kind of the fundamentals of the construction, and but really fundamentally we're designing in this course, and then we're kind of working quite closely with those costume students in realising those costumes through both the making but then also the fitting process, which is, you know, another kind of one of the great intimate collaborations of costume design actually. And Alice is a very strong costume designer. Maybe you can speak about that a bit, Alice.
When you're designing costumes that are predominantly going to be made, your maker is your greatest ally. Having a kind of understanding of pattern making and draping and how clothes are constructed is incredibly beneficial. Not mandatory, but it does help. But that relationship is one of the most important in the work that I do, and one of the most kind of enjoyable. I work very closely with some pattern makers and tailors, and we with an actor and a body, because the body is the kind of third part of the triangle in that, and the body of the actor, and the mind of the actor. We become like a mighty little triumvirate trying to sort of unpack what this costume is, and the process from an idea on a piece of paper, whether it be a drawing or a reference, to a pattern and a piece of fabric, to a mannequin, to a body in a fitting room, where the major evolution really takes place, to the stage, is one of the greatest and most satisfying parts of being a costume designer, I would have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, my question's for Alice. What was it like after graduating NIDA, to get into the industry from there? And did you experience any obstacles as a woman in the design world? especially like back then?
Back then, yeah, I know. No, you're right. 20 years. No, it was a really different landscape when I graduated. I actually tried out for the course twice. I got in my second time. After the first time, I went and assisted. I spent 12 months assisting, and that for me was one of the most beneficial things I did, because I met people within the industry and I began understanding, before I even got here, how, and this is in theatre, how it works, what is the process of a production getting up and getting onto stage. I then did my 3 years here, and I think the industry works in cycles and waves, and I happened to graduate at a time where there were people kind of moving around, and there was a space. There was this like spot for a costume designer. And I had an interview for my first job in my last week of NIDA, and I got a job at the Sydney Theatre Company on a main stage production for later in
Working
the
with
year.
me.
No, you were actually my second hire.
There we go.
But I was booked for a job in the middle of the year, and it was. I had a 10-year plan to work at the Sydney Theatre Company, and when I was in third year, I'd got there, and it was purely because someone was busy and someone was doing something else, and so I got it, and then I got a job on a production with Bob, with a director who I, again, 10-year plan, work with Benedict Andrews. And I interviewed Benedict, and then Benedict also made me interview with Bob, who was the set designer on the production, and I got that job. And that was really, for me, where it all began, because these people became my new class. They became my collaborators. They became my dearest friends, my closest confidants, and we would just go from kind of show to show to show, making theatre, and that was really a continuation, and still is now, of my education. I learnt so much in those first 5 years out of drama school, because I worked with people who'd been working for a lot longer than me on much bigger shows than me. I was terrified, but I also felt really quickly like I'd found my place, my language, my kind of people, and it sort of evolved from there. I was primarily a costume designer. I had trained in both. I wanted to do both, but I was a female in my early 20s, 20 years ago, and it was a different time. One of my dearest friends was a female set designer, but she had sort of come up against sort of similar things, and it was really kind of an archaic idea of men build things, But I also formed really great relationships with the people in the workshops, building my sets, building my props, and I guess I just ignored my gender because it didn't matter, and it shouldn't matter. Just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I don't know how to build a wall. And so I just kind of kept plugging away.
Thanks, Alice. We actually have to wind it up pretty quickly here. There's QR codes on the way out. You can get some more information from that. If you've got any questions about the design course, you can just email design@nida.edu.au, and that'll come to me, and I can answer any questions for you. I'm going to be out on the desk there all day. You can come out and have a chat to us. We'll have some students out there. Hopefully Alice will be out there just for a little bit. You can come have a chat out with Alice out there as well. But I look forward to seeing, applications from a lot of you across the desk. I think if there's one thing we're looking for here, it's curiosity. I think that's kind of the key thing that we're looking for in any student here. So, be curious about what's behind that door. Thank you. Oh, yes. I can. Yes. So, and we have one, the next session in here after this is at 11, is that right, Wendy? Yep, so at 11 o'clock, it's an alumni panel of designers and makers, so it includes graduates from the design course, from the props and effects course, the costume course, the construction course, and I think that's it. If you want to learn more about any of those courses, that'll be in here in 10 minutes or so. So thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks, Alice, for joining us. And I look forward to meeting you out in the foyer there. Thank you.